So in today's class, we'll be looking into something called as JSPs. JSP stands for Java Server Pages. Okay, stands for Java Server Pages. And in this context, we will just try to reiterate our servlets project, and we'll try to see like what are the specific problems that we uh, found while coding for servlets. While coding for servlets, the first and the foremost thing that we understood is like in servlets project or in servlets, when people started writing code, they try to write they try to write the entire logic in one single uh, file where it has the business logic, the presentation logic, the database logic, which means everything basically is present inside that. So the problem with that scenario is like every time people try to change something, it becomes too, I don't say messy, but it becomes too difficult for people to maintain that. So maintaining the code is pretty difficult. The other thing is like in a servlet, we can write HTML code also. So writing a HTML in Java is a little bit tedious. And the next thing is, as a Java developer, we might not be efficient in writing HTML codes. So it is also tough for a Java developer to design all the front-end stuff using the HTML. So these are all a couple of drawbacks in servlets. Now, the next thing that we are going to see here today is something called as JSP. So in a JSP, the basic thing that we need to understand here is Java Server Pages has a capability of separating the user interface from the servlet logic. Okay, so before we understand all those JSPs, let us start with the basic fundamental concepts in JSPs and then go ahead to the next level of creating the project, the same old project using JSPs. Okay, now let me just create a simple project here. I'll say dynamic web project. So let's do first JSP project. Generate web.xml, save finish. So JSP stands for Java Server Pages. We will try to see how exactly JSP is pretty much similar to a servlet. Okay, so starting with the basic concepts, the first one. So in this project again, what I do is in web content, okay, in web content, I will just create a simple file. So like a HTML file, I will create something called as a JSP file. Okay, I'll say right click. Now I say new JSP file. Did you see here? It has an option called JSP file. And at any point of time, if you don't find it, always go to other and start typing in something called as a JSP. It will show you JSP file. Okay. Select that JSP file and give it a name like first page dot JSP. Okay. Now, if you notice a JSP page, a JSP page might look exactly similar to a HTML page which we wrote till now or which we used in our previous project, but with some additional tags. This might be one tag we might not have noticed in a HTML page. Okay, so a JSP is nothing but a HTML page which can understand Java code also. Okay, JSP is nothing but a HTML page which can understand Java code also. Now, when I say that it can understand Java code also, it means you can write Java code in a JSP also. It's not only in a .java file, you can write it in a JSP file also, some Java code. Now, the next question is, then how can you differentiate between the HTML tags and the Java code that you write in this current project? or in this file. Why? Because in a JSP page, how will you need to understand, right? You need to tell, hey, this is a HTML tag, this is a Java code that I'm writing. Like that, you need to differentiate and you need to tell. So how exactly you can tell that? So the first and the foremost important thing is to understand how we can write Java code in a JSP page. For that, it has defined some specific set of tags. Okay, so using a tag, I can write some Java code. So let me show some simple examples. So if I can show a simple, the first example that I would like to show is like how to write a scriptlet tag. Okay, so understand the naming conventions. So whatever I'm writing at line number 11 is nothing but a simple comment. Okay. So if it is a Java program, you write slash slash or slash star and then star slash. In between that you can write something which is nothing but a multi-line comment, right? So now in this scenario, we will be looking into something called as scriptlets. So see, all right, scriptlet tag. Okay, so in the scriptlet tag, the first thing that we need to understand here is how to write a tag. Okay, how exactly the scriptlet tag looks like. It is less than percentage and then percentage less than. So at line number 12 you see something called as less than percentage, which is nothing but the starting point of the tag, and percentage less than, which is the end point of the tag. So anything which is written in between these lines is considered as a Java code. Okay, so let me show you a simple example by writing a code. So see here, before I write a code in there, so if I say string s equal to Prabhu here, okay, there is no error at this point. Okay, in a JSP page there is no error, but if you notice here, this is just considered as a simple comment or a simple set of characters that you are writing on a JSP page. It will never be considered as a Java code. So in order to make that as a Java code, so what I do is I use a scriptlet. Here I say string str equal to Ragu. So did you notice here it became, or you are able to write some Java code in a JSP page using a scriptlet tag. Now if I want to print something, all I say is like, or if I want to assign something like string int x equal to 10, or I can say out, and if I want to print something onto the browser, okay, the first thing, did you notice team, like in our servlets project, when we wrote or when we created server time, in that scenario we created a response object. Into that we try to add some data so that it can be printed onto the console, right? Now in order to print some values onto the console, I can use something called as an out. So I say out dot print. See, do you see here? It shows the help content help, like how it used to show in the .java file. Out dot print. I say this is a Java code in JSP page. Okay. So the biggest difference between a servlet and a JSP page is, in a servlet you write HTML code in between Java, but in a JSP page you write Java code in between HTML tags. Okay, so the first thing that we saw here is a scriptlet tag, where its scriptlet tag can be like less than percentage, percentage greater than, and anything, any Java code that you want to write, you can write in between these lines, and that is nothing but a Java code. So is the scriptlet tag clear to everyone? How to write a scriptlet tag? Okay. That's good. Now the next one that we'll be looking here is a declaration tag. So declaration tag. Now in this declaration tag, what we do is we will try to see how exactly we can write a Java code again using this tag. But once we are done with all these tags, basically there are three tags that I'm going to explain here. Once I explain all the three tags, then I will try to explain the difference between these tags. Like means the first scenario is you can use any tag to write a Java code, but in which scenario you need to use which specific kind of tag. So to understand that, first let's see all the three tags, then understand the difference. The next one is the declaration tag. The declaration tag is less than, percentage, and semicolon. Okay, so less than, percentage, and semicolon. Anything which is written inside this is considered as a declaration tag. So here I say int I equal to 30. Okay, then I can say like public void add int num1 comma int num2 return num1 plus num2. Okay, not void. Maybe I can, let me say, yeah, maybe instead of return I can say sys out, maybe also system dot out dot println num1 plus num2. Okay, now second one that we saw here is like how to use a declaration tag. So in the declaration tag, again I use some Java code where int I equal to 30 and I'm able to write some specific method. Okay, so that is a declaration tag. Now the third one that we are going to see here is like an expression tag. So in this expression tag, expression tag. So in this tag again I can write some Java code. So the first thing that I will do here is use some tags like less than, percentage, equal to, and say here as str. Did you notice here str is what I've used at this line number 12, the same str I'm using. The username is some comment I have written. This is just considered as a basic comment, and the username is, and I've written str. So let me quickly do one round of testing. So let me run this page on the server and explain some stuff. Run as, run on server. Okay. Sorry, what is that? Oh, okay. I got your question. So in every tag, the end will look like percentage greater than, and here also percentage greater than, here also percentage greater than. The only thing that differs is like how you start the tag. Is it just less than percentage, or less than percentage, or exclamation, or less than percentage and equal to? Okay. Run it, run it, run on server. Okay. So see here. Okay, let me just quickly make some changes here. This is a Java code in JSP. Let me write a BR. This is a HTML code and then refresh this one. Okay. This is a Java code in JSP page is printed, and then the username is Raghu is also printed. And this one you get it from a print statement, and this one also you get it from some print statement. Okay. So you are able to write a simple JSP file, and you are able to call that JSP file, so that the JSP file has the capability of processing a Java code and it can display some information, right? And also, like, if you want to say you want to write a date, new date, maybe I will explain that. That is again a different tag that we will see later. But the first thing, what exactly is happening in the background? Okay, when I create a JSP page and deploy it onto the server, what exactly is happening in the background? So the answer to that is the first one. Any JSP page which is created, once it is deployed onto the server, the first step that happens is it gets converted into a servlet. Okay, it gets converted into a servlet. That is the reason why if you go to my Tomcat, so in my Tomcat there is a folder called work. In that there is something called Catalina in that local host. In that local host, if you notice, there is something called as a first JSP project, or all my projects are being present, are being deployed here, created here, where if I go into the current project, first JSP project, under that org apache JSP, you can see something like two files with the exact same name with what I have created a JSP page, like first page underscore JSP dot class and first page underscore JSP dot Java, which means any JSP file that you create in future will be converted into a .java file, which is nothing but a servlet. And that servlet, which is a Java file, will be compiled, will become a .class file, and this is the servlet which the web container calls every time when a request comes for first page.jsp. So now if I make one more JSP page, so see here, I say new JSP file, I say abc.jsp, means I'm not interested in writing any code, but let me just run this on the server. Run on server. As soon as I run this on the server, just notice here, did you notice the abc.jsp file is converted into a servlet, which is nothing but abc underscore jsp, and then it is compiled into a .class file. It is compiled into a .class file. So this .class file basically is called by the web container every time when people request for any JSP page, abc.jsp or anything. Okay. Now the basic scenario that you need to understand here is the life cycle of a JSP page is exactly similar to that of a servlet. The life cycle of a servlet is init, service, and destroy. The life cycle of a JSP page is JSP init, JSP service, JSP destroy. Okay, so it's exactly the same thing but with JSP appended to them. So JSP init, JSP service, and JSP destroy. So once a JSP page is converted into a servlet, the exact lifecycle process goes on, which means that the lifecycle process is the same from there onwards. Okay, so a JSP page is nothing but a servlet in the background only, where it has the capability of processing some dynamic code, which is nothing but some Java code. So is the concept of JSP clear a little bit? Yes or no, team? No? Okay. Okay, see here. The next concept that I'm going to explain here is in which scenario you use scriptlet, declaration, and expression types. The first thing. Let me open the Java file that is created for you. So if you see here, the first thing that I would like to say here is we wrote something called as string str equal to string str equal to Raghu and all right. So if I scroll down, did you notice here string str equal to Raghu index out.println, this is a Java code in JSP page. So all this code which I wrote inside a scriptlet tag is present inside JSP service method. Okay, that is present inside a JSP service method. And the next set of lines like int I equal to 30 and add method whatever I've created, if you notice it is present in the same class but outside all the methods. The int I equal to 30 and public void add. So see, this is your class. Okay, so this class internally has I equal to 30 public void add whatever you have created inside a declaration tag, which means that at any point of time if you write a code inside a scriptlet tag, okay, it goes and sits in the service method of the JSP page. At any point of time if you write code in a declaration tag, it will go into the file but outside all the methods. If you want to declare class level variables, then we will go to a declaration tag and create them so that these variables can be used by any method. But if you want to create a specific data which is only specific to that method, we go ahead and create or we go ahead and use the scriptlet tag. And the next thing that I wrote here is the username is, right? So if I scroll down to the same old service method, in the service method we see the username is str. So what happens in this scenario is again any code that I write using an expression tag goes into the service method only. Now the next logic. What is the difference between line number 15 and line number 31? Both try to print the logic onto the browser. So what is the difference? So the difference is if you want to use out.print, means if you want to use an out object, then you can use line number 15 in a scriptlet. If not, if you just want to evaluate something and print here, you can just directly use an expression tag instead of using an out.print, which means if you want to print str, instead of saying that out.print str, instead of saying that, you can just say less than percentage equal to, which is nothing but an expression tag, and say an str. It will directly print the values for you. Okay, is that clear? Okay, now the next question. Out is something which I did not create in this JSP page, but still I'm able to use out. Okay, how can I use it? So the concept here is there is a concept of explicit objects. If you see here, application, config, out, page context, request, response, session, all these objects are created and are readily available for you, which means the JSP page says that, hey, these are the objects which you might use in a JSP page. So you need not create those objects. I will create them and I will make them readily available for you so that you can go ahead and start using them. Why? Because if you go back to the first project where I say first web project, mm, so see here, to print something onto the console, we try to explicitly create an out object at line number 18, and that out object is what we are using at line number 19. So creating at 18 and using at 19. But in the current file, in a JSP file, did I create an out object anywhere? I did not create an out object, but still I am able to use it because this concept is called as, they are called as explicit objects. They are created already on a JSP page for you and they are readily available. So in interviews when people ask like what are explicit objects, you can tell that application config, out, page context, request, response session. These are all explicit objects which are readily available for you. Okay. So now the next thing that what we will see here is like we will try to uh, understand, or we'll try to see how we can convert the previous project like the servlets login project into a JSP login project, and also add dynamic capabilities for displaying usernames, for displaying some dynamic error messages, all those things. We will see how we can do the same thing using a JSP. Okay, are you following, team? First JSP project. So in this project, the first thing that I will do here is I will always try to compare the previous project with the current one, and I will try to explain the changes that I'm trying to make here. Okay. So in the first web project, if you see, all we did is like login.html page, right? So similar to login.html, I will go ahead and create something called as login.jsp page here. So say new JSP login.jsp page. So now in this login.jsp page, what I will do is I will give again the same old two different fields like username and password for the user to enter some data, and then also a submit button. So let me get the code from the HTML itself. So the same old code that we have here, and a form tag, closing tag. Okay. Okay, a form tag, action which has an action, my app login, method equal to post, username, password, all these things, blah blah blah, done. Now in a HTML page, you can never ever display dynamic content. So when I say dynamic content, if suppose if there is a success in a JSP page, in a HTML project while logging in, you cannot dynamically read who is the user who is logging into your app, and you cannot say, hey, hello Raghu, welcome to app, hello Naveen, welcome to app. Like that, you cannot dynamically present data. Okay, but in a JSP, you can do that. Why? Because JSP has the capability of processing the data dynamically. Okay, so the first thing, there is a lot more to add to this JSP page, but for now I will just stop at this point. Okay, so I just created a simple login page, login.jsp. The next thing that I will do here is I will make this as the default page to be displayed. So in the web.xml, I go back and say that I will change the welcome file list, and here I say login.jsp. Okay. Now in this login.jsp, the first thing that we will do here is we will configure the web.xml URL pattern. Okay. So in our old project, the URL pattern that we configured is my app login. So this is the URL pattern that we configured. So I configure the same old URL pattern here. Control Shift F, format it. And then go to the source code and copy this login project. Okay, so the configuration is good. So the first and the foremost thing that we did is like maybe it's just like basically copying everything from the previous project to this one. But the only change that I made is like instead of creating a login.html, I made login.jsp page. Okay, let me run this one. Okay, see here. In this scenario, it just displays the login page. Do you see any difference? No, it doesn't show basically any difference between the previous project and the current one. So everything looks as is the same. Now, let me close this. Now, I'm not going to change any of the logic here also, like the username, the password, everything is good. The basic changes that we'll be making in this app is like how the code will perform and how the code can return some dynamic data back to the user. So when I say dynamic data back to the user, the first thing, if different users try to log into my application, then I would like to show different names on the success page. And the same way, if there is some error message, I would like to say, see, at line number 24, I am doing a sysout. Instead of doing a sysout, I want to display this dynamic message back to the user on the browser. So how can I do that? See here. So if the data is invalid, the first thing that I say here is request dot set attribute. I will be setting an attribute like error message. What is the error message that I want to display? The error message that I want to display is this is the error message. And then request dot get request dispatcher. I need to forward it to login.jsp itself dot forward request and response. Okay, so I just made only one change. Let me explain this and come back and do the next set of changes. Okay, so I'll go back to the JSP page. So in the JSP page also I will be doing certain set of changes where I can read the data which is coming from the Java file. So for that, let me just notice the changes that I'm going to do here. So I'm going to use a tag. See here, in our previous example we saw multiple tags, a scriptlet, declaration, expression tags and all those things. So let me just use a basic scriptlet tag, and using that scriptlet tag what I do here is I will write some logic. The logic that I'm going to write here is, maybe I will write this logic and I will explain you. error message equal to type text string request dot get attribute error message. Out dot print error message. Okay, let me run it and debug it and explain each step, each and everything step by step. Details, debug on step. Okay, 1 second. Make some changes here. Error message not equal to null. Okay, well and good. Okay, so see here, I say Raghu and secret and not Raghu, I'll say RA and some password I'm selling and hit login to app. So when I say login to app, we started debug mode. One second. Window show view. I just placed a breakpoint. Okay, well and good. Share the no, I RA and some password I'm telling. Okay, login to app. See here team, all the concepts that we saw in the previous project are exactly the same. The only thing that differs here is how we are going to call or how we are going to send dynamic data back to the user. Okay, that is what is being done. Let me do one thing. I think it is doing a wrong reference by calling this from a wrong project. Let me do one quick scenario. First. Okay, debugging. Okay, good. So see here, the first thing that happens here is, as and when I click on login.jsp submit button, the request comes to my login app and it calls the doPost method, and the doPost method tries to get the data like the username, the password, and it tries to validate the username and password. And if you see in the way it tries to validate, it basically checks if the username has at least 5 characters or not, but the username validation will fail. So as and when the validation has failed, what I do is I come here in the request attribute. Okay, in the request attribute I set an error message and I place some information there. So this is like a key value pair. So ERR MSG is a key and this is the corresponding value for that key ERR MSG. So at this point, if I can access ERR MSG at any location where I am trying to forward this request, then I can get this error message. So now the next thing is, once I set this error message, all I do is I say request.getRequestDispatcher and forward the request to login.jsp along with the request and response objects. When I forward the request, then in that request, I'm setting an attribute called ERRMSG. Now, once I go to login page, I can get this request object there. And in the login page, all I say is, hey, request dot get me the attribute called ERRMSG. So, whatever message that I'm setting in the servlet can be accessed in this JSP page and will be retrieved and will be displayed dynamically back to the user. So did you notice here? Please enter username and password with at least 5 characters each. So the way that we are trying to display this page is by getting the dynamic data from the server. Okay, a HTML page cannot do this. This can be done only with the help of a JSP file. So since we are able to set some attribute in the request object, the request object helps us to retrieve that data from the attribute which we are setting on the server side. So is everyone clear like how we are able to set this or get this data? Okay, yeah, that's good. So what happened, team? No response today from anyone? Like, is it clear or is it confusing or okay? So let me continue from here. The same old scenario. If suppose if I want to display a success page back to the user, and let us assume that in the success page that I'm going to display back to the user, let us assume that in the success page I want to display, means the basic scenario always, I want to display welcome and the username. So instead of every time saying that welcome guest, what I want to do is welcome Raghu, welcome Naveen, like whoever user has logged into my application, I want to say welcome that username. So how can I do that? Again, the same old story. So the first thing that I do here is, in the request, all I do is request dot set attribute. What is the attribute name that I am trying to say? The attribute name that I am trying to say here is logged in username. Okay, some key value pair. So that name is nothing but the username that I am getting at line number 18. This is what I do, and I forward the request to a JSP page, success.jsp page. So now what I do is, let me go ahead and configure a success.jsp page. And if you understand the scenario in the success.jsp page, the first thing that I will be doing here is I will try to retrieve this value and I will display it to the user every time. So here when I say new JSP success.jsp, so in this success.jsp page, the same old concept that we saw in the login.jsp will be implemented here. So I say less than string, oh sorry, I will again use a scriptlet tag. So in this scriptlet tag again I will write Java code string str equal to, I will typecast it to a string request dot get attribute of. So what is the attribute name that I need to write here? Anyone? Any guess? Logged in username. Very good. So I go back here. This is the key for which I am setting a value, and I will retrieve that key. Get me that attribute for that key, logged in username, and I say hello str. Hello str, welcome to JSP application. Now see the difference, like when I go back and rerun the project, same project again. Excuse me. So I say I will log in with Naveen and say top secret. Come If it's in debug mode, that's fine. Let me remove this. Did you notice here it shows welcome Naveen, hello Naveen, welcome to JSP application. Now if I say, if someone else is trying to log in like Raghu, so it shows hello Raghu, welcome to JSP application. So how does this application know, or this page? What is this page? This is nothing but success.jsp page. How will this success.jsp page know that in this current context Prabhu has logged in, or in this context Naveen has logged in? How will it know? The only difference is, if you go back to your login app.java, all I do is in the request I set an attribute. Very good, I set an attribute like a key value pair. Okay, so if it is valid, set a key logged in username, set some value to it, and take it back to success.jsp page. Now if suppose in the same way, if I need to set some attributes here, so I say control C, or let me reuse the same thing. If validation fails, which means that you enter a wrong username and password. Okay, so you say here username by password combination does not match. Okay, you take the user back to login.jsp. So now on the JSP page, I'm going back to login.jsp page. On the JSP page, I have already configured for ERR MSG, error message. So I need not worry about it once again. So I go back, run my project once again on the server, run on the server. So finish. So now here, let me deliberately make some mistake. RAG or something. Okay. Oh, no, no. Let me say RAGHU and enter some wrong password and say login to app. Did you notice here it shows username by password combination did not match. If I enter RAG and in this scenario, if I click login to app, it will not show this error message. It will show a different error message. It's saying that, hey, this, it should be like all the input parameters must have at least 5 characters. That's what the error message is shown. Please. So did you notice here the same page is trying to understand different sets of dynamic data which the server is sending back, and it is trying to display it back to the user saying that in this scenario this is the error message, in a different scenario it's a different error message, which means it is able to dynamically display some messages and dynamically understand the data which is sent from the browser, from the server. And the next concept is, means the same old concept. If you see in a success page, even in success page also, it is able to display like who exactly is the user who has logged in to the application based on the parameter that I am trying to set or the attribute that I am trying to set called logged in username. So is the concept clear to everyone? Okay. So let me reiterate the basic concept of servlets once again. Sorry, JSPs. Once again, uh, the concept here is, if you are pretty much clear with the basic servlets project that we did, the first difference that you need to understand the difference between a servlets and a JSP project that we did is like, in a servlets project, a HTML page can never ever understand dynamic data. So any dynamic messages that you want to display, if you see the current project, a login.jsp, it can say if it is invalid data, it shows this error message. If it is something like invalid credentials, then it shows this message, which means the same JSP page can interpret what message to be displayed, which means it can understand what server is sending and it can display it. But a HTML can never ever do that, which means we gave a dynamic data processing to this app in a JSP page. The next thing is, in a servlets project, we can combine HTML code inside Java. Now in the Java JSP project, we try to differentiate the user interface from the actual logic, right? Means the servlet remains the same, but we don't write any logic like a user interface logic in a servlet. All the user interface logic is shifted to a JSP page. Now what is a JSP page? A JSP page is something which can contain the user interface logic along with some Java code. So with the help of Java code, you can do dynamic data processing. So the first thing, in a JSP page, we understood how to write. Okay, yeah, that's good, Adit. That's a good question. In general, HTML page has its own uses, JSP page has its own uses. If you say you need all static content, you can just simply go ahead with a HTML page. But if suppose, see, this error message that I am trying to read at line number 19 can be different at different points of time. Or the basic scenario is, this page can read something which the server is sending dynamically, can process it and can display it, which HTML page cannot do that. So based on your requirement, you need to decide whether to go with a JSP or a HTML page. Okay, yeah, that's good. So the first thing that we did here is, created the same old page but just added dynamic data processing using a scriptlet tag. Okay, the next thing is in a web.xml all the changes remains the same. In login app all the changes remains the same. All the changes means all the logic remains the same, only the redirection operations change. Like whenever you try to redirect to a specific page, you try to set some attributes like error message or logged in username, so that that dynamic data can be read on a JSP page and can be displayed to the user. That is what we understood. And then the next thing that we understood here is, see, request. Okay, if you go back to login app, you are trying to use a request object called REQ, but who has created that REQ? This REQ is already present inside this method as a parameter. Okay, so this is an argument to do post method. So this REQ, which is nothing but a request object, you are able to use in your method. But see here, in a login.jsp page, did you ever create a request object, or did you ever create an out object? No, we never created them. But then how you are able to use them? The concept here is, we are just trying to use some pre-defined objects that are readily available for us in a JSP page. They are explicitly available. Okay. So if you right click, you can see like control space. You can see all these objects are readily available for you. Okay. So these objects you can use it and code it directly, like writing all the Java code in a JSP page. Okay, they are called as, the technical term for them is something like implicit objects in a JSP page. Okay, that's the thing. So is the JSP project clear to everyone? Yeah, so the first thing is, this is the basic this is the basic concepts of JSP. Again, so the same old concept, I say go to the tutorials point JSP link, and maybe you can find a lot of information about the JSPs there. You can start understanding the JSPs. But the base concept here is like how to get a dynamic data onto a JSP page, how to request it and how to process it. That is what you need to understand. Okay. So any doubts or any questions till this point? Okay, that's good. So if no, I'll just like to stop the recording.